We got to break Cereba up. Cereba is a cartel. We have to own our grid because we paid for it. You had it too long. That's number one. We need to control the purchasing of fuel because we pay for it. We should be in charge of buying it. The fuel companies, you better buckle up too. Jackson Point pipeline have to be reverted back to the ownership of the country. Oh, Mario, you can't tell them how to operate their business. Well, yes, we can. Having this idea that you're going to impose what's best because of what the law tells you can do will cause an uprising in this country that you've never seen before. My children are going to be saddled with the debt of a billionaire so that he can have his name printed on everything we got around here. Because, let me tell you something, this is Dart Island. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think I made it before the 12 o'clock hour, so I could say morning. Just a quick last, broadcast before the New Year, before the Christmas. I know December 3rd was our last show. Just got a little caught up doing a bunch of stuff, so I didn't get an opportunity to come in the studio to do a broadcast. But certainly, Christmas is 3 days away. Well, yeah, 3 days away, 4 days away, whatever. The Thursday is Christmas, the 25th, today the 21st, I think. So yeah, I just want to recap some of the things that have transpired over the past year. Obviously we have a new government, got a lot of different things that are taking place. So we want to, kind of have like a little overview, a little recap of what's going on. Kind of like what's in store. I know there's a lot of buzz surrounding the new immigration policies now that they're actually, implemented in, January 1st. A lot of those things will kick into action. And I know that the buzz I'm speaking about is within the business community from various areas, not just small business people. It's quite a wide spectrum of individuals who have certain concerns with the immigration policy. Now, last week, Friday to be exact, I was over at the barber shop, Eastern Avenue, and I'm not going to call the barber shop name. Obviously, I don't want to get anybody in trouble or even get myself in trouble. It was a really good, healthy discussion we had in regards to some of the policies. I was asked a question by one of the barbers, on what my opinion was on some of the new regulations that they're implementing, with the licensing fees, work permit fees, and whatnot. And one of the main concerns are, the small people will be affected the most. Clearly, whenever you increase rates, whenever you increase fees for certain things that everybody have to pay, then yeah, the person that struggles the most will have the greatest impact. Now, I do know that for a very long time, as I explained with the response and my answer to his question, I was like, look, these implementations that are coming online now based on the immigration reform and some of the policy changes that is in the pipeline that has now been approved on the third reading of the House, it is absolutely, fair for anyone who is being affected or impacted by some of these policies to have a conversation or to ask a question or try to better understand. But, when we have a position in our country, it's paramount, it's important, it's absolutely 100% important that people understand that a lot of these things were overdue, like way overdue. We should have been charging, certain rates from a long time ago. I realize that implementing something that has such a drastic effect overnight, kind of cold turkey kind of thing, like, the driver's licensing fees went from, $100 or whatever it is. I'm speaking hypothetically because I don't know the numbers exactly, so I don't want to go and quote them and, somebody just nitpick on those things. But I know that it increased like 500-600%. And yeah, a person that, have a regular, 9-to-5 job who was on a work permit and whatnot, that fee will definitely affect their bottom line. However, I think a more phased approach would have been probably better for the consumer. But at the end of the day, whenever you visit countries or places, or even if you decide to call that place your home, you have to get into that system and adjust yourself to that climate. And you have to respect the laws and the decisions and the policies that are being implemented. Now, granted, I know how much of a knee jerk sort of feeling it must be for these fees, because persons who have been working in our environment even for 10, 15 years, who are still here, can I can sympathize with the argument in which they have regards to, well, we wasn't paying that all this time, and all of a sudden now they changed it. But then, on the backside of that argument, my argument is this, or my rebuttal to that would be, well, you've enjoyed cheap prices for 15 years, and I'm speaking hypothetically to those people who've been here for several years and had enjoyed the rates in which I think were far less than what they should have been to begin with. But they don't look at the benefits in which they have received over the years that they've been here. They're only focused on now that they have to pay something back or pay a little more, and the benefits that they've received and the opportunities that they've received prior to is out the window now, because that's no longer relevant in their mind. Oh, well, I've been here for 5 years, and I've been paying XYZ, now I got to pay this. Well, at the end of the day, if the fees had been high when you first got here, question is this: would you have stayed? Would you have made that adjustment? Would you have worked your way into a system that is clearly better than the system in which you came from? And we shouldn't have to be having this discussion from a policy making position like our government. Our government shouldn't have to get out on a roadshow to explain nothing to anyone who have been given the privilege to work in these islands. We shouldn't have to explain that. In fact, it may be reasonable and ethically right, but at the end of the day, I think it's the people who live and born and work and have to live in this environment for don't have a plan B or a plan C or an option to go somewhere else because they're not from here. And I don't want people to get offended or understand what's really taking place, or misunderstand what's really taking place. It's because when you look at the majority of the persons who are complaining, and of course you have some of those in other areas that I really don't care about, that I really don't care whether they complain or not, either here or there. But when we're looking at people, the Nepalese people, the Filipino people, our Jamaican neighbors, and persons that are close within that's in our region, like so some people from South America, Honduras, and Bhutan, and those different places. I try my best not to say anything offensive or make them feel as if we're not being sensitive to the situation. But the reality is that even if our fees were increased, or because they are, these are adjustments that, again, like I said, they would have to make. Yeah, it's going to create some level of discomfort financially, but they'll have to adjust. No matter how high those fees are, it is still a million times better than where they come from, in their economy, in which they worked in and made far less. And I can guarantee you that the amount of work that they put in their respective countries, and the money in which they made as a return for that work put in, was far less than what they're making here, even with our increased fees. Because there's no secret, Cayman is one of the most expensive jurisdictions within the region, cost of living wise, but they're still here. I don't care what nobody say. They make adjustments, because when you find those communities that work in a large portion of our work permit labor areas, those persons pool their resources. They'll rent 1 2-bedroom apartment and 15 of them live in it. They'll buy a 50-pound bag of rice and 1 case of corned beef. So they improvise. They make adjustments. They don't go and spend their money in the fine dining where it's super expensive in the Cayman Islands. They don't do that. They spend what it takes to survive, to keep their clock ticking, and they send their lion's share of their money back to their families, which is their right to do. And their families have an opportunity to live a far better life than if their parent or their loved one was working in their economy trying to make that same money and give them that same life. So there's a trade-off. There's a and I'm, again, I don't want to sound insensitive to the situation, because I know how it feels to not have anything, and I've been there, done that. I know how it feels to live with nothing. So, which is why I don't fear hitting rock bottom, because we born and grew up on rock bottom, so that's a norm. I pity the souls in the Cayman Islands that born with a silver spoon in their mouth and can't bear the thought of not having a dollar in their pocket on any given day of the week, or not having a roof over their head or a meal to eat, because those are the person that feels the most pressure, because they're not used to it, they don't understand it, they never had to live through it. So yeah, those are the people that it affects the most. So when we look at this overall scenario that is taking place with the immigration reform and the fees and the things in which government is putting in place, and now it's got its third reading, it's approved in the House, it's gonna kick in the new year. And when it kicks in, yes, there's going to be some discomfort, yes, there's going to be some issues, but they're going to have to adjust. And that's my response in the barbershop was, okay, guys, look. And then, of course, there was some pushback. And I had to get up, and I had to get a little rowdy, and I mean, which is my natural nature anyway. One thing I must say, though, I didn't curse. I kept it civil. But I told them, I said, I can't go. And obviously, in the barbershops, most barbershops are, Jamaican barbers. But of course, they have a right to voice their opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. And as I explained to them, I said, look, you guys are talking about, you come here to do jobs that Caymanians don't do. Well, let me explain something to you. The reality is that we have a growing population. And I said to them, I said, back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and even to the early to late 90s, we didn't have the population in which we have now, which means there were less infrastructure strain, there were less social strains on our island. So therefore, we were able to manage it a lot better with the monies that were being generated through the fees and the services in which we charge. But now that we have this 85 to 90,000 population on an island that has been mainly geared towards catering to 20 to 25,000, we have infrastructure strain, we have infrastructure growth that we have to pay for, roads and maintenance of roads and public spaces, and all of these things cost money. So I broke it down to them. I said, the best thing for you all to do is to go to the ESO website, go to the financial service sector of that, look at all of the appropriated funds and where government appropriate those funds and how much that comes up to. And then when you find out how much that comes up to, then go to the section on the ESO and find out how we generate revenue. Then you compare the monies generated to the monies that is appropriated, and you'll find that government have to be innovated and diversify and generate revenue by other means. We don't have any exports. We don't have any natural resources that we're selling and generating GDP off. These things come at a price. I use the old age analogy. Everybody drive down the road, they hit a pothole, and the first person they want to blame is the government. Oh, the government don't try to fix this road. But they don't stop and wait a minute and say, but wait, it costs money to fix that road. So if you complaining about the pothole in the road and not willing to contribute to a road tax to fix the road, then who are you complaining to? You're complaining to a government that have to come up, and I don't care who the government is, right? We got to take our hat off to any member of government who can sit down around a table and convince the rest of his peers that, look, yeah, we need to do this, this, and this in order to generate money to take care of this, this, and this. We have several authorities in Cayman. We have several entities in Cayman that don't generate revenue, but is absolutely necessary for our day-to-day operation. The fire service, for instance, right? Without the fire service, we couldn't have international traffic coming in and through the airport, because the FAA won't approve an airport without a proper ran fire station that meets all of the international standards. So the fire service have to have proper funding in order for us to have adequate service so that we can continue a day-to-day business. Again, the schools, the government schools, that has free education for locals. Again, these schools cost money. Not only that, you got to pay the teachers, you got to maintain them, you got to do all these upgrades and upkeeps. That costs money. Yes, some other departments of government, such as customs and immigration, they generate revenue. But I can guarantee you that they're not generating enough money in the GDP to take care of all of the expenses in which the government have to face every year, year in and year out. So when I hear someone saying, oh, well, this affects us, well, the reason why it affects you is because the strain and the cost of our infrastructure upgrades and our infrastructure on a whole and our social existence is caused by you. You are the reason why we have to spend more money to take care and build more roads and take care of all of the facilities to accommodate the increased population that is more than the local people. So if we're going to turn our focus to the local people to continue taxing them through excessive duties and different things in order to accommodate the inward bound influx of labor, simply because we have a growing we have a very robust economy where we have development growing, we have financial service industry, we got tourism, we got all these things that are growing, which demands bodies, which demands work permits. Again, the silver liner in the work permit demand is that we get paid, we charge fees. Now that we've increased fees in certain sectors, again, everybody frown in their face, even to some local people who operate and enjoy the cheap environment in which they operate business in. Them too get up and do videos and complain. The same barbershop owner has a video on one of the social platforms complaining about the prices, but yet if he had enjoyed all of the cheap prices for another 40 years, he never thought to one stop and think and say, well, you know what, I don't mind the government charging a little bit more now. I've enjoyed cheap services for the last 50 years. We see people don't look at it that way. We have people who constantly complain just for complaining sake, right? I may have been guilty of that in some point too, in some areas, but at the end of the day, I have a firm grip of the reality in which I live in. I am aware of my surroundings and I understand it. So whenever someone asks that question about how you feel and what you think about it, this is what I think. I think we've been charging too cheap for too long. We've been smiling and waving and complacent for too long. And now that we finally implementing things that we can finally try to benefit a little more to take care of some of the social issues and some of the infrastructure issues, we got everybody complaining, but I don't see them going nowhere. So as bad as that is, it's still better than where they come from. So the government need to hit the pause button with this whole, we need to explain and we need to do public consultation. No. We need to get back to making policies, creating policies that benefit these islands and the people in these islands and the people who have to endure the forever long constant high cost of living by living here and contributing all of their revenue here, barely having enough chance to save money to go abroad and enjoy a 2-week or a 3-week or, God forbid, a 1-month vacation. So yeah, I don't disagree with the government. I agree, and my response first to them was that not enough. We should have been charging this 30 years ago. Our economy would be a lot better if we had done it. But again, when you have created an institution that have catered to inward bound investment on all levels, whether it work permit holders, whether developers, whatever it is, we have enjoyed the revenue from that without sticking a pin to say, okay, along with this revenue comes some social issues, some infrastructure issues. We didn't properly forecast the growth of our economy and the growth of our population along with the growth of labor and the demand for it. No one in Cayman, not one single solitary person in Cayman could say or look anybody in the face and say that we don't need work permit holders. We absolutely need them. Now, the problem is that we have allowed work permit holders to treat us as if we are dependent and that without them we would dry up and die without them. And I can assure you that that's not the case, because in the absence of all of the demand for labor now, our forefathers went to sea. So they left these shores, they went abroad, they generated revenue, they sent it home to take care of their families, and they built this economy and they built this island to where it is today. So In the absence of the 45,000 work permits, we had Caymanians who left home with a third grade education, some with none, came back as sea captains, engineers, and chefs, and all sorts of qualifications that you would require a college degree to have. These gentlemen didn't even have a primary school education. These are facts. This is written in our history. It's not taught enough in our schools. But I do know that we have some of the most resilient people on the planet. But we have people that we have allowed to degrade us and tell us as if we don't belong in our own island. So yeah, the increases in which government has implemented over the past couple of months, this last year, I 100%, 100 million% support. And I stand by it. And I don't think that we should make any adjustments unless it's in the upward realms. Now, a lot of people might like that, but those are the realities that we live in. And I make no apology for it. You know, I try my best to try to keep it balanced and say things that are truthful and factual, right? And when I look at this situation and I look at the backlash and I look at and I'm sure that the government, I'm sure Michael Miles and his cabinet were aware of this sort of reaction, of course, because they've seen Cayman politics for the last couple of years. They understand what happens around here. We've made people become too comfortable. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should make people uncomfortable, but how is it that we're gonna continue? How is it that we're gonna continue to groom a system that was not realistically geared towards creating a sustainable environment for Caymanian people? We can't continue to groom that reality. We have to make some changes. There's some hard changes that some people mightn't like, and that's okay. Because we don't create policies for you to like. We create policies for it to work so that you can adjust to it if you're not adjusted, right? And that the people of these islands get maximum benefit from any institution or any industry in which we allow to operate on our shores. You know, I wrote this paper maybe a week and a half ago, or maybe 2 weeks, okay? Talking about the Cayman's proverbial oil, which is the financial service industry. And this one individual, Stafford, I think his name is, I can't remember his first name, Michael Stafford. He's an accountant, runs his own little independent firm, I believe, I'm not sure. But in any event, he had some fair comments to make. He and I had a little debate back and forth. But he misunderstood the article, so I had to tell him to go reread it and understand what I was trying to say, and then hopefully he got it. I'm not sure. We ended the conversation, but we had a very healthy debate about it. And what I was trying to explain to him is that yes, the financial service industry is the goose that lays the golden egg for the Cayman Islands. There's no secret behind that. But that golden egg is split 3/4 by 1/4. The financial service industry get 3/4 and we get 1/4. That's not gonna work out, because also, if you read the article, I think I posted it on Word of Mouth, and I talked about 3 other countries in which built a sovereign wealth fund with their resources that they had in order to protect their people and to secure their people, not only in the present but way in the future. I talked about Norway, I talked about Singapore, I talked about Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and how they generated sovereign wealth funds to take care of their people, moving from today's day all the way into the future. And obviously, we don't have oil and gas and gold. We don't have all of these things. What we do have is a very healthy book of business in the financial service industry. Out of all the mutual funds and hedge funds globally, 85 to 90% of them are in the Cayman Islands. And at one point, it was 100% of them. But again, 85 to 90% of those mutual funds are in the Cayman Islands. We manage about $11 trillion in its entirety on these shores every year. And approximately 25% of that comes out to go for service fees and the institutions who take care of and manages these accounts and these businesses and these funds. Now, my suggestion is that the government need to extract 5% of the already 25% that is being extracted by these financial institutions to put into a sovereign fund. to take care of our health care, our housing, our education, food, and all of these different things in which the minority of Caymanians are struggling to pay. And when I say the minority, meaning, and let me clarify that, we are the minority in these islands, and a large majority of that minority are local struggling Caymanians who fight and are challenged every day to cover the very four essence of life: food, healthcare, housing, and education. And we have an opportunity, and we've had it for 40 years, ever since the financial service industry came into play. It could be longer than 40 years. But my point is that we don't have proper mechanisms that extract the right money from that. We charge regulation fees and licensing fees and work permit fees that surround those industries that, yeah, we generate some revenue, but not even nearly enough for us to take care of our people in the future. Hence the reason why we have to saddle all of the other industries with such burdens of giving away everything in order to generate revenue. It becomes a social problem in the Cayman Islands, and we're not focused on what's really taking place. Now, if we were to implement this 5%, because of course my good friend Michael Stafford, he was under the impression that I wanted to tax the institutions that provide the services. Again, he didn't read the article properly. Now, at the end of the day, when we look at these things, if we put 5% of that 25% of that $11 trillion that is already being charged, we're talking about a few $billion a year. Our GDP this year is 2.5 or 2.2, 2.5. I'm stand corrected. The government just passed a budget for 2.5 billion or 2.2 billion dollars. This particular sovereign fund could generate that amount of money in itself. And then we don't have to be so reliant on all of the work permit grants and all of the driver's licenses and all of the areas in which we generate revenue from. We could take our foot off the gas and pump the brakes a little bit, readjust, configure the system where it works for us. But how the system is currently designed, it doesn't work for us. It works and caters for everybody who comes here. You know, we have seen multiple conversations in regards to our GDP, our portfolio, our economy, and whatnot. We have a mandatory pension fund that comes out of everybody's salary. That fund is then shipped overseas in the various pension houses to be invested in overseas vehicles and other economies, making money for those people. I don't know one single person that's on pension, that the pension that is provided to them after retirement is adequate enough to take care of them. I don't know one person that it takes care of. Yeah, it subsidizes a bit and it gives a little money, but it's not enough. It's not nearly enough. So I've always asked the question, outside of the sovereign fund that we can generate from the financial service industry, because the only person that will be affected by that 5% coming out would be the equity partners and the partners within the firms, because those are the persons that are taking home the trailer load and the cruise ship load of money annually in bonuses. They are the people. So if we are comfortable with generating that level of wealth for them, then they shouldn't have an issue with contributing a small portion of that year-end bonus back to the economy, back to the country, back to the people of these islands. And again, this is not something we need to go and talk to them about. In fact, I don't want to have a conversation with them. Now, I would bring them in and let them know exactly what we're doing. But I'm not there asking for their advice, and I'm definitely not asking for their opinion. I don't want them to consult on anything. Here is the policy, and here is the date that we're going to implement it. End of story. Done. That money can then go into a subcommittee that is independently run, parallel to government, because you don't want government members diving into that, because every 4 years we're changing them. We want to have a strong, structured committee that manages those funds and ensure that those funds are given to the people of this country and the people of this country who benefit from it. And that's how it should be run. Now, are there going to be some challenges? Of course there are going to be challenges. But if we're not willing to fight those challenges for the benefit of our people, then what's the sense of all this? What all this is about? What's it for? What is it for? You know, I know for a fact that every certain person that's in government will have a very polished reason why that don't make sense or you can't do that. You know why? Because they're going to take information and consulting, and they're going to take direction from the very industry in which needs to be the people and the institutions in which comply. You can't go to them and expect them to tell you, yeah, that's a great idea. They're not going to tell you that. You need to develop that policy. You need to implement that policy, and you need to go to them and inform them and make them aware of that policy. End of story. Done. You know, we play around with the future of our islands and the future of our people for far too long. It's time to stop now. It's time for us to put things in place that's gonna ensure a healthy future for the Cayman Islands and its people. We need to do these things. Now, in the absence of doing that, we're gonna continue to struggle to generate revenue. We're gonna continue to see the strain on the infrastructure without proper adequate revenue to maintain. I talked on many occasions about the pension and what we can do with some of the pension money. God knows that we need to eliminate all pension providers, bring pension back in under government. Again, form an authority. Government need to form a pension authority that operates like a private business to manage the pension fund. We need to buy CUC because we can use the pension money and buy CUC and give it to the people. It's for the people, right? All five pension providers in Cayman could collectively put to enough money in a pool to buy the $250 million that CUC worth on online. It's a publicly traded company. We can also go out and we could commission and buy our own cruise ship. Ladies and gentlemen, I know how way out of the park that may sound, but can you just imagine if we owned our own cruise ship, Sir Turtle of the Seas? That's all we need is own our own cruise ship, home ported out of Florida. Same place where MSC, Royal Caribbean, and Carnival is home ported out of. Home ported out of Florida. Fill it with Caymanians and people who want to work in the shipping industry. You know how much jobs that would create for the one cruise ship? And you guess what? That cruise ship can't call and say we passing your port because we passing by your destination because you don't have a wharf. That cruise ship can't pass us by because we control it, we own it, we run it. If the cruise lines can sit down in their boardrooms and convince their shareholders that it's a great idea to buy an island in the Caribbean, then why can't a government in the Caribbean sit down with their peers and their cabinet and say, guys, you know something? It might be in the best interest of our island to own our own cruise line. Now, I know that this free enterprise and this don't compete with your customer. No. Cayman do not have any natural resources, ladies and gentlemen. That don't apply to us. We don't have oil. We don't have mountains of rivers. We don't have banana. We don't have cane. We don't have sugar. We don't have any of that. Tobacco, nothing. So that don't apply to us. 60 to 75% of all the revenue generated in the cruise industry comes from the Caribbean basin. 100% facts. They making about $4.5-5 billion every quarter, and like I said, 60 to 75% of it comes from the Caribbean. So why is it that we're not brave enough to tap into a market in which we create, and to a market in which we have the western itinerary of the cruise ship destination journeys? Cayman is the top destination, the premier destination. So again, we have to be able to diversify. 1, 2, we have to find people who are brave enough and willing to do it. And 3, we have to create policies to better manage our affairs on these islands. We need to have a sovereign wealth fund put in place to ensure the continuity, sustainability of our people. It's only 25,000 Caymanians. That's the reality. And don't let me talk about generational Caymanians, because it's less than that. So if we're not prepared to put things in place in order to take care of our people, then we can't complain that we don't have anything in place to take care of our people, because it's our fault. Because here is a system, here is a solution, and over here is the people who can implement the solutions. So until we're willing to implement the solutions and put in place things that will create far, far better environment for our people, that's our fault. I don't know about the fault. So when you see that pocket of foreign people networking together and making a boatload of money in Cayman, yeah, you can first glance and say, boy, they come here and take over Cayman. But no, we've allowed them. We have created the environment for them to do just that. They're not breaking any laws. They're not committing any crimes. They're doing what we allow them to do, but yet we are the greatest complainers of our own actions. So it's almost like the environment. We talk about let's save the world, but who are we saving the world from? We're saving the world from ourselves, because none of the wildlife ain't out there damaging the earth. It's us. So that should tell you a lot. But again, ladies and gentlemen, there's so much stuff to discuss and get done. I think that Cayman has come a long way. I think the immigration reform and the new policies and the things that are in place was well overdue. And we'll see people adjust. They will adjust. And then in the next year and a half, it'll be just a thing. It'll just be a memory, So we got to stop being apologetic for creating change in our islands that benefit our people. We have to stop doing that. But I just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I pray for everybody to be safe over the holidays. We know that this time of year is unfortunately the time of year that everybody is out and around, so therefore there's a higher risk of people getting in accidents or something happening. So please be very cautious, be very careful, and let's stay as safe as we possibly can on the roads and even in our private environments and stuff, because sometimes you don't have to go nowhere for trouble to find you, and it's important that we are constantly aware of the surroundings that we're in. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hopefully 2026 will be far more beneficial for those who struggled this year and the years in the past. And stay safe, and hopefully I'll be able to continue broadcasting in the new year as we always do over here. And we got some good, exciting stuff coming up in the new year, and I hope to see it through. And so yeah, enjoy the rest of your short week, because Christmas is Thursday. I'm sure there's a lot of shopping going on now. Even those people that are going to money, they're out there shopping. I don't know if they got a little extension on their credit card or what, but anyway, the roads are clogged up. Ain't nobody at work, I'll tell you that much. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. Today's Monday, and it's going to be a short week because we got Christmas, Boxing Day, and then the weekend. So a lot of cooking. I'm going home right now, bake some cassava cakes, and season up some beef. That's my chore for the rest of the week. So enjoy your holidays. God bless, and I'll see you all next year. We got to break Cerebra up. Cerebra is a cartel. We have to own our grid because we paid for it. You had it too long. That's number one. We need to control the purchasing of fuel because we pay for it. We should be in charge of buying it. The fuel companies, you better buckle up too. Jackson Point pipeline have to be reverted back to the ownership of the country. Oh, Mario, you can't tell them how to operate their business. Well, yes, we can. Having this idea that you're going to impose what's best because of what the law tells you can do will cause an uprising in this country that you've never seen before. My children are going to be saddled with the debt of a billionaire so that he can have his name printed on everything we got around here. Because let me tell you something, this is Dart Island.